Now, on 2GB, Sydney Live, with Ben Fordham.
All right, so Brian, we're standing in the master control area of Macquarie Radio Network. This is a big operation. How many technicians run this joint?
There's 2 IT managers and 5 engineers that actually run the joint.
So you're all rostered on around the clock?
That's exactly right, 24 hours a day.
My God. Now, talking about IT, you also have an IT expert, or 2 of them?
Two of them that actually work here full time.
And their jobs would entail what? Setting up all these
Setting up all the new machines that we have in here, helping the users out every day, day-to-day stuff, the running of, helping us engineers as well when we run into problems, the normal day-to-day stuff that would happen.
Now, it's interesting, you did a TAFE course many years ago in radio and broadcasting, then you became a panel operator. How did you get into doing this as a job? This is pretty exciting.
It was a fluke. I asked for a week of work experience. At the end of the week, they said, can you come back the next week for paid work? And that's how I got in. The rest, I say, is history.
The rest is history. Speaking of history, can you quickly run us through the history of how all this stuff operates? So when program's on the air, it comes in and goes where first?
Comes through all the processes that happen back in the studio. Then it heads out through this bank of processes to the studio to link for the transmitter side, and then it shoots off to Homebush.
Over to Homebush. So you were saying that everything is ISDN here, so when it leaves the building, straight to the transmitter side?
When it leaves the building to go straight to the transmitter side, it goes through the air, so it's a link.
Microwaved?
Yeah, microwave, point to point.
What type of problems would you come across on a daily basis?
Just operator error, people getting confused on what they're doing. Just basic operator error.
Since this network's gone into more syndication of programming, does that cause more problems?
No, not really. No.
It's usually less?
Yeah, it is actually, yeah.
Okay. So over here you've got another rack behind us. That does what?
All our IT stuff. It's all our servers, processors for our OBs and whatnot have you.
Yep.
That's basically all our IT stuff.
Now, we're talking about digital radio, so, that's the new way of radio here. Can you just tell us very quickly how that operates?
Well, digital radio is basically the same process as a normal AM link, but it's actually digitised, where there's actually a delay on the signal that you actually hear on the wireless of your digital radio of about 7 seconds.
So when you went to digital, interesting thing, the music that you process, say, on a station like 2CH is processed, at wave quality, goes out on the air, on AM, it sounds fabulous. What are the pitfalls that you come across when you move to digital and you're streaming the same signal to that as well?
Or you can hear a lot of different sounds. You can hear the high pitches, the low pitch, a variety of sounds that are used from AM.
So is that the imperfections of what we're dealing with? Like, is it because it was processed badly to begin with?
Yes, absolutely.
So do you have a policy in place that fixes that for digital, or is digital still seen as something secondary to the AM side?
I see it as something secondary to the AM side at the moment.
So what's your view on digital? Like, honestly, you play with all this technology every day. A lot of people will say, is digital radio the AM radio of AM stereo? Do you think it's got a place, or is it something that's going to take time?
It'll take time. It'll take time before it actually gets a place in society. People ring us up every day going, is AM going to disappear tomorrow? AM won't disappear for at least another 20, 40 years, at least, before digital actually really takes off.
When you're looking at digital, can you just describe, you get a thing called a multiplex, and is it like a bandwidth that you get allotted, and then you can slice that bandwidth down to make many stations?
That's correct, yeah. You get a multiplex. We have 3 stations that we use on our multiplex. That's 2GB, 2CH and the crack. And then they're all just slotted in to where they want to go.
So you can put them at different bit rates?
That's exactly right.
So what's the perfect bit rate for this type of stuff? Can you stream as low as 32 kilobits? Or is 64 the sort of industry standard?
64 is the industry standard. 32, you may as well just throw it away.
So if someone wants to get into this as a job, what will they have to do?
A lot of hard work and study to get into doing this sort of stuff. That's what it is, a lot of hard work and dedication.
Well, as you can see, time is against us down the back here. So we're in the master control room here at Macquarie Radio Network. It's pretty cool to see all this stuff. And we're sitting at 21.4 degrees, the optimum temperature for all this technology. So we talk a lot about occupational health and safety, and I'm intrigued to know, Brian, what all this is about. This wasn't here when I worked here years ago.
No, it's only just new.
And what's it there for?
Oh, you know, if somebody has a heart attack, you can restart them.
So does everybody have training on this?
Selected few.
Right.
Selected few. Basically, if you open up the door, it sends an alarm, and we get a place it goes to, get an alarm, and they send out an ambulance.
So why did it get put in? Is it something that is just part of your OH&S committee, or was there a need for it?
Well, just, I guess, extra safety for OH&S, you know. The workplace is becoming more hazardous these days.
So you have to be very, very careful. So there you have it. That's very interesting. So an emergency call 000, defibrillator on board there, and it calls the people, and I suppose the ambulance arrives and everybody's checked to make sure that they're fine.
Greatest memories, 2CH 1170, ELO from a new world record as telephone line. Big O, Leah ahead of that, and of course, who'll stop the rain? How appropriate.
2CH Sydney traffic. Thanks to the new Suzuki Swift Sport. It's hotter than ever.
The M4's an absolute mess. Outbound delays from the start to a breakdown near the old...
So we're live in Studio 5. This is pretty cool. Brings back some memories for me. I used to sit in here and record on my shows. That microphone is still the same mic, I noticed. It was rusty when I was here. So, Brian, what happens in here? Is it mainly used for production, or do you actually go on air from in here?
Well, breakfast show is actually done from here, from 5 till 9 every weekday morning. And then this is used to do voice tracking, Monday to Friday. And Bob Rogers comes in here on the Thursday afternoon and sits in the corner and does his show for Saturday night for 6 hours.
Explain to us the term voice tracking, because it's something that is part of radio. So what does that all mean?
Where 2CH goes into automation, will go into automation tonight from 6, and they will remain in automation till 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. So the announcers will voice track every back announce that they have before they go home, basically, and then nobody's here. It's all just computerised. So
news gets integrated by itself. So if it goes off air, who does it call? Whoever's on call, I suppose. Exactly right. Whoever's on call has to quickly come in here and fix it up. Tell us about the features here in this studio, like in terms of the consoles that you're using. Is it overkill to have a console that big in today's world of radio? No, not at all. Not at all. So we use the Klotz digital consoles in here, and that's a standard one. And we use RCS master control in here, so that's basically it. So basically you've got two stations running out of the same building. One runs master control, the other one runs Maestro. Why does 2GB use a different system to this radio station? Just easier to manage. A lot easier to manage, rather than having two completely same systems and there's problems. I notice with these consoles you can customise your voice and all that type of stuff. Do announcers have a lot of availability to play with these tools, or is that not allowed? That's not allowed. Not at all, no. We set it and leave it, and that's it. So if your voice isn't really that good, it just comes out like that, eh? Exactly right. The processor will fix it up. What sort of problems happen with these? They're connected by Cat5 straight back to the master control room. So what are some of the technical problems you face with these every day? Just freezing, locking up, you know. They just have a mind of their own and just lock up. That's basically it. And how do you fix something like that? If you're on the air by yourself, is it as simple as a reboot, or you switch it off and switch it back on? Simple reboot.
For McDonald's new loose change menu, it's your Nova, 132410. You can request any song you want. Tim in Chatswood for you.
T-Pain, Turn the Lights On, because I love it.
Another war, another martyr revered. Passing fear from their fathers and has lasted for years. Bullets don't discriminate the skin colour they pierce. They speak the same.
Okay, very different to Macquarie Radio down on level 1. This is really funky. So what's this all to reflect, really?
Well, I mean, Nova's a very upbeat, vibey, new music sort of station. So the idea is that all the consoles are quite high and the announcers stand up to when they go on air. And yeah, I mean, it's just trying to obviously stay in keeping with the brand as well. So there's a lot of red and things on the walls and all sorts of that.
It's interesting you talk about brand because downstairs it's very, very different. People do their jobs, and I think other people worry about the brand. So working here as a technician, is the brand something that's talked about all the time in meetings, and how do you reflect that in what you do as a job?
Well, I don't know how we reflect it, but it's certainly it's talked about quite a lot. I mean, a lot of the things that we do are because of the brand. I mean, the other week we were down at Cockle Bay setting up an OB for these two breakfast clowns to jump in the water, and we had to mic them up and do all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of impact for that.
I notice your racks, though, everything is so neat and tidy. I mean, you know, there's got to be a lot of pride in running a place like this, a lot of responsibility. Can you talk us through basically what you might do in a shift when you're working?
Oh, well, look, every day is different, you know. There's obviously big projects on the go all the time to replace things with different bits and pieces. That a lot of stuff breaks as well. So you know, there's half the day is probably project, the rest of the day is chasing around, you know, making sure everything's working. So everyone's very keen to make sure everything keeps going, because their jobs as announcers, for instance, you know, depend on all of the systems working. So.
This is a real radio station where you're standing in here and you're looking out the window over here, and you've got the heart of the city and Channel 10 next door to us. Your automation system, very similar to 2GB.
Yeah, Maestro. It's been here for a while. Day one we've had this thing. It's not the most up-to-date or current system, but it still works. So I think in the next sort of 12 months we're hopefully going to replace it with something newer and whatever. But yeah, it still functions. It plays songs in a row, so that's all we need. That's
what it's about. So when we talk about redundancy, do you run this stuff until it conks out, or do you have a plan in place before it conks out type of thing?
Absolutely. I mean, everything has a life cycle, and we work on replacing it when it gets to its end of life rather than when it actually starts to break. Some things start to break a bit sooner than we think. I mean, we bring them forward on the life cycle, but yeah, I mean, ultimately we try and make sure it always works all the time. So.
Final question. Someone wants to be a broadcast technician and get into a job like you're doing. What would you recommend they do?
Apply.
And do what? What skills do you need?
Well, I mean, obviously electronics are critical. A good nerve is also quite useful. You know, just good time management and you know, and people skills is very important in an environment like this.
So you were saying you did a course at TAFE. What did you do, and where did you study that?
It was an advanced diploma in electronics engineering or technology. I can't remember what the course was called, but I did that. I started at North Sydney, and when they closed that place down, I went to Ultimo.
Fantastic. Well, here we are, live and exclusive. That's inside Nova 969's studio. Just phenomenal. Very different vibe, nice and glitzy. And I think it's one of those stations that I think everybody would love to work at. Even the boys over here from our course doing broadcast technology.
Sydney's 95.3.
Sometimes I wonder how I'd ever make it through.
All right, we're down here at 95.3, and this is a very different field, very different radio station compared to Nova upstairs. I like the whole design of this. In terms of acoustics and stuff, I just love the feel of this whole environment. It's very, very homely. Brendan, you want to work here, don't you?
Definitely.
What do you like about this?
Just the way it's all set up so perfectly, and the setup, how they've customised the Klotz desks. Very, very impressive.
It's very, very simple. I mean, it's interesting you've got all these desks on both sides, but even the microphones and the stands, the little screens, it's very, very tasteful. I think it's, obviously it was designed for talk, but Dom, how would you like this at 2BS in Bathurst? I reckon this would be the way you got to go.
I'm salivating at the moment. No, it's very sleek, and this is kind of what, when you think about radio, or what I think about radio now, is this is what it's at, and this kind of sexy, you come in, you've got all your screens, you've got all your consoles, and you can picture the magic happening in the room.
Yeah, there's a little bit of magic left here. Obviously someone put that there, more music, less talk. That's an old radio cliche if ever I've heard one. So there you go. Inside the studios at Sydney's 95.3, which used to be Vega and classic rock, and going through another lifespan at the moment. And who knows, you could use that chocolate wheel and maybe win $1,000 in the breakfast show.